the best, number one and nothing less. Lead me to my destiny. I have waited patiently. I have vision, oh I believe. I know I can count on me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up. Here we go, it's getting close. Now it's just who wants it most. It's just life, that's how it is. 'Cause we have our strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I have vision, oh, can't you see? I'm on the move, make way for me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself up. Stand up for the champions, for the champions.
We are discussing around the theme, the relationship between good governance and youth participation. For those who don't know me, you know me as a radio person, but I now call myself a political scientist. Is it about age? Is it really the issue? David Miliband, born on the 15th of July, 1965, is a British Labour Party politician. He was Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs from 2007 to 2010. He became Secretary at the age of 42. But the extent it will go in escaping future uncertainties is a matter of critical debate, one of the reasons we're here. But I will remind us that those who bother why things are the way they are must also be worried why they easily accept the clusters of rules made real by those who make things the way they are. These and hills are no wide. They are places of beauty yet to be explored by the Nigerian state. It takes brilliance and sincerity to see through the obstacles and convert them to national gains. Is that not? Is that not the reason we have the Professor Moghalus? The seas and the things on them are not the country's dilemma. They are the ingredients required to help us expedite action for development. Will Professor Moghalu not help? Stemming from this, the Nigerian youth must rise up to the task of making the state to be in their economic and political interest, as seen in the emerging economies with the same historical antecedents. I wish you everything good as we go. Thank you.
Please, can we appreciate Mr. Moghalu yesterday for that very, very insightful, reflective, and deep exposition. I'm very, very happy to let us know that today is still one of the few days we have in Ibadan to have such discussions like this that are very intellectual and also very helpful for a lot of young people. And I think it's good that we expose ourselves consistently to this. And in our midst, we are very privileged to have powerful people, people of substance, people that would do justice to this program. I would like in a special way to recognize Mr. Alaji Olaide Olayiwola. Please, can we appreciate him? He is the chairman of Cowan Party, Oyo State. He's right here with us. In a special way, I'd like to recognize Mr. Ola Agbaje. He's also the logistics officer, Cowan Party. Please, can we recognize him? All right, he's at the back. And we know that for some of us who are a little emotional about our schools, we have a lioness and a lion here with us, all right? So I'll be unleashing them one after the other. But in a special way, I'd like to recognize Dr. Louisa Anda. She's the former director of Diamond FM UI, and she's, of course, in the Department of Communications and Language Arts. Welcome, man. Yes, I also have to recognize the chairman of your state National Youth Council. Please, can we see you, ma? Let's recognize you. All right, she's at the back. All right. Yes, thank you very much. Right about now, we'll go to the next session, and which is, we'll be having a short video. And this video will expose us to some of the things that are happening globally. There's a young man, his name is Olumide Kolalawal, and he's a public policy graduate student, George Washington University student, and at some point, a legislative aspirant 2015 election, all right? So he will be helping us with a talk, and I would just enjoin us to please stay glued in as it shows. So please, can we have that now? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me share my thoughts with you. Thank you, Dr. Moghalu, for taking out time to mentor the youth. I believe this is the best of times for us in Nigeria as young people. This is the best of times for us because there are a lot of challenges that we're going through, and inherent in those challenges are great opportunities for us to emerge, because leaders emerge in times of crisis. There's a conspiracy theory that states that the young people, the old people, or the political elite have refused to vacate the seats for young people to be actively involved in politics. The truth is this: nobody will vacate the seat for us, because power is not given, power is taken. And it has been proven over the years that strong and effective leaders have emerged in times of greatest challenges. And 2019 presents a great opportunity for us to run for office. Over the years, we have been used as political consultants and social media battalions in politics. And when the elite get to the office, they relegate us to the backside, or they give us positions of special assistants, field advisors, just to compensate us for our struggles. But the truth is this: all those positions that we have been given will not be cannot be effectively utilized, because we cannot make policies with them. The best we can do is just to provide suggestions or advice to our principals, and of course they are not obligated to accept whatever it is that we are presenting to them. The only way for us to make a strong impact in the political landscape is for us to be elected. When we have been elected, and we have the constitutional mandate to effectively implement policies and legislations that will affect the lives of people positively. And I strongly feel, and I believe without any doubt, that we have incredible young people in Nigeria who are aspiring in 2019. It is our responsibility as young people to support them. Why do we need to support them? We have been disappointed by the gerontocrats. There is no future for us in Nigeria if we continue this way. The only way forward right now is to bring in dynamism into politics. We need to bring in people who understand the global political environment, and of course the innovative economic landscape. So get our permanent voters card. Secondly, to aspire to be elected, and thirdly, to collaborate among ourselves, because collaboration is a new competition. By so doing, we're going to make sure that the various offices that are available for election in 2019 are split. And when these offices are split, that means there will be a synergy between credible young people and credible older people, So we cannot collaborate effectively and see how we can begin to project policies that will change our landscape in Nigeria. And of course, make life better for every one of us. I want to wish you a fruitful deliberation, and I strongly feel that this program will benefit every one of you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Can we just appreciate him for that? Yes, so he did that right from the state, and as we know, sometimes we know that even as young people, anywhere in the world, if you're a Nigerian, you have a political responsibility to your community and to your country. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for having me share my thoughts with you. Thank you, Dr. Moghalu.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so please, for some of us who would be interested in the book, all right, is right at the back. And I would like us to have a copy of it, all right? It's a very beautiful book, and I want everybody who is anybody who has a political, I won't say ambition, but a political responsibility to try and get this book. The title is Emerging Africa, How the Global Economy's Last Frontier Can Prosper and Matter. And of course, it's by no other person but our dear Professor Kingsley Moghalu. So right about now, we're going to the main meat and the main substance of today's program. And in a very special way, we know that our coming here is also to learn from the political giants, the captains of industries, the leaders of Nigeria. And in a special way, I'll be calling on stage no other person but Professor Kingsley Moghalu. But before then, please may I kindly ask that you rise up so that I can read your profile. People have been looking at, where is he, where is he, where is he? You're going to see him very soon, and I'm sure your butterfly feeling will be high. So please, sir, may we have you rise? Thank you very much. All right, so Professor Kingsley Moghalu is a global leader who has made contributions to the stability, progress, and wealth of nations, societies, and individuals across such domains as academia, economic policy, banking and finance, entrepreneurship, law and diplomacy. As Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria from 2009 to 2014, he led the execution of extensive reforms in the Nigerian banking system. After the global financial crisis, he was a member of the bank's monetary policy committee that brought inflation down into single digits. Please, can we appreciate him for that? Also, as Professor of International Business and Public Policy at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, University of Massachusetts, USA.
Tufts University.
Tufts University in Massachusetts, USA. He has taught, trained, and inspired graduate students from more than 40 countries in North America, Europe, Africa, Asia. Men and women who will go into leadership roles in their countries in careers from business to government service, from non-profit to military intelligence. Professor Kingsley served as the chairman of the board of directors of the Nigerian Export-Import Bank, NEXIM, and the Financial Institutions Training Center. He was also a member of the board of directors of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Securities and the Exchange Commission of Nigeria, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, and the Global Alliance for Financial Inclusion, AFI. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome Professor Kingsley Moghalu.
Before I go into my remarks, let me tell you about myself in 1 minute. First of all, you need to know that I was born in Lagos in the 1960s of parents. My father was one of the pioneer foreign service officers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. My mother was a teacher who studied here in the West. My father studied at the Polytechnic in Ibadan. My mother studied at St. Helens College in Ondo, I think it's in Ondo, correct? So I'm trying to connect myself to the Southwest, and I'm coming. More importantly, perhaps, is that it was not said, but one of my names is Ayodele. The reason is because when I was born in Lagos, my parents had a very good family friend, whom some of you will know, at least you've heard. Mrs. Fumilayo Ransom Kuti. She gave me that name, Ayodele, Fela's mother. So the reason I say this is because this country is very small, but we don't know. We are connected to each other in so many ways, but we erroneously think that we are separate and distinct. Not true. We're not the only nation that is diverse in its ethnicity, but because we have very weak leadership, we have allowed our different ethnicities to become a divisive instrument instead of being a source of strength. Diversity should be a source of strength. So, but we believe that a new day is coming in Nigeria. And we believe that there will be a change of leadership that will heal Nigeria, bring Nigeria together once again. And hopefully that leadership will bring up what I want to start this conversation with: a world view of unity, economic transformation, and the restoration of Nigeria's place in the world. We too are God's children, entitled to a place in the sun. Sometimes I feel sorry for the youth today, because the country has grown progressively worse as you're coming of age. The farther back we go in time, the better it seemed the country was in terms of opportunities for young people. But today, despite the challenges, you also have your own opportunities, and many of you are making use of it. There's an explosion of innovation, innovative business, entrepreneurship. I'm not old at all, but when I was younger, the kinds of ambitions we used to have, my ambition was to become a United Nations official. I was 13 years old when I had that ambition. I joined the UN when I was 29. 16 years later, I persevered, but eventually I got my letter saying, on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations, I am pleased to offer you, and I remember that was one of the happiest days of my life. I spent 17 years in the United Nations. From entry level, P2 we used to call it, I rose by the grace of God and hard work. I must say, hard work, very important. Pray and then work hard. But don't sleep at church or the mosque and then don't work hard. You will not get the results you're looking for. I rose from entry level to the highest career rank of director in the United Nations. I served at the UN headquarters in New York. I served in Cambodia. I served in Croatia. I served in Tanzania. And I served in Switzerland. I was too young to retire. I was 45, so I resigned and set up my own consulting firm in Geneva, Switzerland, Sogato Strategies, advising multinationals and various companies that wanted to come and do business in Africa. That was when the Africa Rising thing began. This was in the late 2000s. And that's what I was doing when I received an invitation to return to Nigeria and become the deputy governor of the central bank, appointed by President Umaru Yar'Adua. But that invitation was extended by Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, who was just 4 days old as the governor at that time. And we met at the World Economic Forum conference in Cape Town, where I spoke. And we were sitting together at dinner table. I was running a risk management consulting firm. And I said, Lamido, if there's anything our firm can do for you, or for the central bank, we're happy to do so. And he said to me, I have a better idea. Would you like to be the deputy governor of the central bank? Just straight, like that. Totally unplanned, and my answer was no. I've just set up a business. It cost me a lot of money to set it up, and it's doing well. But we can help you with a consultancy. He said, no. Don't be too quick to say no. Sleep on it, let's have lunch tomorrow. The next day we had lunch, and he explained to me and persuaded me why it is important that I should return to serve our country. And that's how I came back in 2009 as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, and we were able to do the banking reforms. Finishing my tenure of 5 years, I was appointed a Professor of Practice in International Business and Public Policy at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. For those of you who know, the Fletcher School was jointly established in 1933 by Tufts and Harvard Universities in Massachusetts. It is one of the top 3 schools of international affairs in the world, graduate schools. And so I do feel honored as a Nigerian, not only to have been a graduate of the school many years ago, but to be appointed a professor on the faculty of the school. And I was able, and what did they appoint me to teach? That book that you were shown. They said, teach us about emerging Africa in the world economy. And that's what I taught for 2 years. Why am I telling you this? It took Oyibos to recognize a book, called me and made me a professor. Teach us about this book. Nobody in Nigeria invited me to be a professor. Teaching about economic transformation. I'm trying to tell you, I'm coming. I'm trying to tell you why we are poor. I'm trying to tell you why we are poor. Because we do not recognize the importance of knowledge. We don't recognize the importance of the intellect. Here they'll tell you, the man too broke grammar. The man just a blow grammar. Then they will make it even worse by telling you about stomach infrastructure. And I said to people, wherever I speak these days, the only thing that stomach infrastructure guarantees you is a trip to the toilet. Period. That's the only guarantee you have with stomach infrastructure. What you need is mental infrastructure. That is what builds a nation. That is what builds the wealth that is sustained and sustainable. And that is what will create the stomach infrastructure that lasts forever. Because that's how it's been done by countries that have made progress. Why do we think we'll be any different? So, let me, having made those preliminary remarks, let me talk about what we're here to discuss. The role of the youth and your participation in democracy. I want to tell you that the reason why, as Edmond Obilo said, you have young people who came to power in a certain place, did well. You have young people who came to power in a certain other place, but they haven't done so well. It comes back to the mind. And what is it about? The worldview. If you do not establish the foundation for political, economic, and social progress, you are simply moving around in circles. You have motion, but you don't have movement. This is what we need to get down to. Those young people in these very successful societies, why were they successful? Because their societies are constructed on the basis of a worldview. And that's what I discuss in Emerging Africa. And I show that the secret of wealth and prosperity lies in the mind. Development begins in the mind. Because development is simply the application of multiple energies pulling in one direction. We will to move in this direction. When a collective makes that will, has that desire, and they put their shoulder to the wheel, working together in a certain direction, progress will automatically result. But first, there must be a foundational worldview. There must be a foundational philosophy that drives any country that makes progress. What is the foundational philosophy in Nigeria? What is the Nigerian worldview? What is the worldview of the Nigerian state? Can anyone tell me? Can your politicians tell you? Can your leaders tell you? Do they even think about it? Do they even understand what I'm saying? People are more interested in how much they can steal so that they can buy a 4x4. They buy the 4x4, they are driving on roads that are potholed. It doesn't strike them that something is wrong. And while they're driving on the potholed road, they want to take away their attention from the fact, first of all, why did 4x4s flood this country? Because of the state of the roads. So 4x4s flooded Nigeria so that our politicians and our big people can take their minds away from the badness of our roads if they were to drive around in saloon cars or sedans. And when they're in the potholes, they're on their phone. Hello, yes, that's how are you? They're chatting away to take their minds off the contortions their drivers are going on the road. Then after that, every little while they run away to Dubai or to America or to London. Someone said to me, why are you've lived abroad, you work abroad, you have acquired one or two things? And I said to him, because I have worked for it. There is a big difference between me and the Nigerian politician who has been a local person, hasn't gone very far, but steals all the resources and takes the money abroad. I spent 17 years working for the United Nations. I'm a pensioner in the UN. So you cannot begrudge me my dollars. I worked for it. Is it a crime? No. So don't compare me. It's a very different situation. I'm enjoying the fruit of my... That's different from a politician who just steals state resources and goes abroad and buys a home. If I have a home abroad, I paid for it on a mortgage with my salary. Is that a crime? No. So my friend said, actually it's true. But we've become... So the Nigerian politician will go abroad and enjoy everything he or she sees abroad, but doesn't have a thought to come and create the same thing in our country. That is where the problem is. So, until we must have the type of leadership in this country that understands the importance of a worldview, we must create Nigeria as a worldview state. We must have that vision, that sense of destiny, that sense of common destiny, that sense of where we are all going together that unites us beyond the things that might divide us. So it doesn't matter whether we're Yoruba, it doesn't matter whether we're Hausa, it doesn't matter whether we're Igbos, it doesn't matter whether we're Calabaris, but we know that our identity is Nigeria. We belong to one country and we will turn it into one nation. United in purpose, prosperous, powerful. That is how other countries were built, because they had leaders who had a worldview. What is a worldview? A worldview is your sense of how you interpret the world and how you relate to the world and how you make your way in the world. These are fundamental understandings. It's a philosophical issue. But you must first of all ask yourself, why is the world... Worldviews, you have personal worldviews, then you have group worldviews. What we're discussing here now is a group worldview, as in what is the worldview of the Nigerian state? What do we believe collectively? But as an individual, it matters, because the Yoruba man will see the moon and want to land on the moon. In some parts of the world, they look at the moon, oh my God, this is so mighty, they bow down and start worshipping it. That's why you have a lot of superstitions. in where we come from. People are wasting their time worshipping the gods of small things. Others. Others are busy conquering on the basis of their worldview. And that is why the Yoruba man will leave the Western world, come to Africa and colonize you, go to Asia and colonize people, go to Latin America. There is that global intent to dominate. That's what a worldview does. It gives you that drive. When you wake up in the morning, you know that every day, this is what I have to accomplish. So you must ask yourself, why is the world the way it is? That explanation, we have to understand it. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Where are we coming from? What is the value system that will guide our society? What is the strategy that will drive our path to progress? How can we turn this Nigeria, this our society, in 20 years to be like Dubai? This is the kind of worldview that was driving Sheikh Al Maktoum of Dubai. This is the kind of worldview that was driving Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. This is the kind of worldview that drives Paul Kagame of Rwanda. This is the kind of worldview that drove Meles Zenawi of Ethiopia. In Nigeria, you have leaders who are busy appointing all their relatives. They want the whole of the government of Nigeria to be from their clan. Because we don't have a worldview. Narrow views reign. And when narrow views reign, poverty is the result. Because your mind is not liberated. You're worshipping the God of small things. Hey, I'm president of Nigeria. Igbo president. The time for the Igbos has come. Such a person cannot take you anywhere. It is the turn of the north. It is the turn of the west. And you wonder why we are poor. It is time we had leaders with world views. People who can look and say, here's where we need to take this country. And here's how we're going to get there. Here's a timeline for us to get there. And we measure the discipline of execution every year, one step at a time. If you are a youth and you want to participate in politics, start out with a worldview. So that your participation in politics and democracy has purpose. And with that purpose, you can have impact. I have deliberately taken time to start from here before I come into the question of whether I should run for office or not. That's a second level order of discussion. We often miss the foundations and we go and start the discussion from the top. That's why I've laid this foundation for you. And when you read Imagine Africa, you will understand what I'm saying far more. So, to come to the question of the youth proper, there are two visions of the role of the youth in society. And I want to remind you of what Benjamin Disraeli said, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The youth of a country are the guarantors of its prosperity. Yes. Every society, the youth matters. Why? Because the youth are the regenerative force. We will all grow old. Even you today, youth. One day you will grow old. We'll all grow old and die. In the long run, they say, we are all dead. But as we are dying, new people are coming. So the youth is the regenerative force. That's why the role of the youth in any society is special. So Benjamin Disraeli said, the youth of a nation are the guarantee of its prosperity. But here's what Herbert Hoover said. J. Edgar Hoover, not Herbert Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover, the founding director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. Very sarcastic man. He said, blessed are the youth, for they shall inherit the national debt. He might have been talking about Nigeria very seriously. Because today, Within 2.5 years, your national debt has gone from 9 trillion to 20 trillion naira. Somebody has brought that debt upon you. Tomorrow, that person or those people will come and tell you, vote for me again because I'm from your tribe, or because we worship the same God, the same way. And you will be voting, and you're a young man. Maybe they'll call you a member of the youth wing. Any political formation that has anything called a youth wing is a dinosaur contraption. That is to say, it is antiquated and belongs to the past. Because what they are telling you is that you're a fringe actor. Youth, they'll give you that tokenist place. They will use you to rig. They will use you for thuggery. They will use you for ballot box snatching. Meanwhile, these people who were telling you that you are the youth and the leaders of tomorrow, you are now a full-grown man or a full-grown woman. They are still leading you. They were leading you when you were breastfeeding. But they want to go into retirement with you. So you and them will retire at the same time, but you haven't had the opportunity to lead. If you let this happen or continue to happen in this country, the first requirement we have in this country, we must bring about a generational change in leadership in this country. That's the only chance we have to select leaders with a worldview. We say in Igbo that a man or a woman does not grow left-handed in old age. If you're a normal right-handed person, you cannot suddenly at 60 start using your left hand. If you are a left-handed person, a lefty, as we used to say, you cannot suddenly start using your right hand. So why do you want to believe anybody who tells you that we are going to change? Now we understand, yes. Maybe they will soon be buying you apps and distributing to you. And you say, But the habits that these people have come up with over decades, distributing stomach infrastructure, ethnicity, all sorts of things, how do you think they will change it? They can't change it. The chance for real transformation begins with people still who are young and coming up. So, what Edgar Hoover said about the national debt, remember it. Because that's one of the prices of being young. That if you're misled and mismanaged, you inherit the what? The mess. So being a youth can be a good thing, but it can also be dangerous. Now, there is a challenge before the young people of this country. We've seen the not too young to run bill, and that's a very good thing. I supported it. But from Obilo's remarks, we can see the question of readiness, preparedness. There is a wave across the world today, yes. Young people are taking over, yes, that's true. But let me give you the example of the Arab Spring, which is in fact where this wave began. It began in the Arab Spring, but it died a premature death. Why? And that's because the youth have two options. They're faced with some contradictions when they want to begin to participate in politics. One is, how do you participate in politics? There is informal democracy and there is formal democracy. The informal structures are the civil society movements which drove the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was driven by protests, by youth groups, but they were not structured political parties. That is the formal and structural politics. There is informal politics. So you have a choice. Do you want to join the parties, take over the parties, and really begin to drive the agenda in a more positive direction? Or do you want to put pressure from outside as civil society? That's one dilemma. The next dilemma is, do you run or do you vote? You can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. But there is a balance we have to understand. If the emphasis for the young people of Nigeria becomes just running for election for the sake of running for the elections, and you think that because you're 25 years old or 28 years old, you're entitled to be elected to the Senate, just because I'm young, it's our time. But are you prepared? In the places that was mentioned, you find out that these people start early, from college, from universities. They're already in student politics. By the time they come out, they've contested for some local seats or things like that. By the time they're 30, 35, 40, they're already experienced. It might look to you in Nigeria, where you're ruled by gerontocrats, like as if they're so young, but they're also prepared. So, since we know that a lot of our youth have not yet prepared themselves very well, and if you go in there just because you're young, you may not necessarily be able to perform, and therefore we have the same result. Different problem, but same result. Now, do you make a choice then and say, yes, of course, some people can run because they're young, but the main strategic shift is that the youth must vote. Because what? You have the numbers. There are 16 million young people in this country between 18 and 35 years of age. Wherever you point in 2019, if you exercise your civic responsibility to get your voter's card and vote, wherever you go, that's where the nation will go. Therefore, you can shape your future. So nobody will vet those individuals. But just because the PDP or the APC has produced such a person, you feel obliged to vote for him or her. But what do you get? Bad governance. Because you're not asking the questions you should ask of any candidate. Number one, what is his or her character? Number two, what is his or her competence? Number three, what is his or her capacity? Number four, what is his or her track record? You're not asking these questions because we are captured by the dominant formations. And that is why it is a good thing that we're beginning to see a break away from these two major parties. Nigeria's solution cannot come from any of them. I make bold to say, because they've grown up with a different mindset, they've grown up with a different worldview or lack of a worldview. So, it might be better, might be smarter, might be wiser for the young people of this country to say, we will influence and determine the outcomes in elections where the very best candidates will emerge. They may be young, the youth as an official youth, like 18 to 35. If you elect an 18-year-old, okay, that's democracy. Or they may be more of middle age, 40s, 50s, up to 60 maybe. You may even decide to elect a 70-year-old. So long as you are satisfied that that person has the right preparation. But what we've seen in Nigeria is that because of the nature of our society, most of the people in those age brackets who have been in politics for the wrong reasons. And therefore, our future doesn't lie with them. Their future is behind them. Their only point of reference is the past, not the future. A young man or woman can envision the future. A man of 70 sees the past. He's thinking about his life's story, the wars, the victories, the defeats. But a young person is dynamic. You're looking to the future. You're trying to move ahead. That's the definition of youth. Youth is forward-looking. And there's a saying that politics is about trying to solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's methods. But leadership is about trying to solve today's problems with tomorrow's methods. I believe in leadership. But in this country, we have politicians, but no leaders. We are all politics, but no leadership. Because our politics is the wrong type of politics. It's not the type of politics where people are trying to get to leadership with a world view so that they can transform our society. No, they're trying to get there for the sake of power, for the sake of the tribe, for the sake of the ethnic group, for the sake of the religion. We are worshiping the gods of small things. Or in the area of the economy, those who lead you today, every day they're watching the oil price. If it's high, they're happy. If it's low, they become sad. Why? Because they don't have innovative and productive minds. If you have an innovative mind, if you have a world view, you will know that the wealth of nations can never come from natural resources. Why is it that Africa is poor when it has 70% of the world's strategic minerals, but only 2% of world trade, only 3% of foreign global investment, foreign direct investment? But you have the minerals, but you're not wealthy. Who's wealthy? Switzerland. Who's wealthy? South Korea. Who's wealthy? Singapore. Who's wealthy? The United States. How much do they have under their soil? Nothing. Especially in the case of Switzerland. I lived in Switzerland. Rocky place. But so wealthy. Why? Because of innovation. Because they have a world view of innovation. That they will conquer nature and they will produce things faster, better, cheaper, competitively. And when they produce them with raw materials they import from Ibadan or Enugu or River State or whatever, they take it, refine it, turn it into what we call complex products and export it back to you. So you have your mobile phone, you're WhatsApping, you're doing this, and you feel that you're part of globalization. You are a passenger in the bus of globalization. Somebody else is the driver of that bus. And that's the guy who produced, who manufactures this. You're simply making him rich. You get a little convenience. You can call your grandmother in the village, sure, that's fine. But you're not wealthy. Because your trust is in your raw materials. You're selling, you are exporting crude petroleum and importing refined petroleum products. What is the clinical definition of madness? What is the clinical definition of madness? You're selling the raw product. Somebody else is refining it and selling it back to you at a very high price. And what that does is that it creates an economy here of petroleum products importers whom we then subsidize so that the fuel cannot be so expensive so that we, the politicians, remain what? Popular. But wealth is not being created. This is the absence of a worldview. Leadership is not a popularity contest. Leadership sometimes involves taking the people from where they are. In fact, all the time, it involves taking them from point A to point B to point C. Even though they may resist it, it is your duty as a leader to explain to the people, stay with me. That's what balanced growth is. That's what inclusive growth is. And that's why Africa was led into saying that Africa is rising. When I wrote Imagine Africa, it was to rebut that argument. Africa is not rising. It is emerging, but it hasn't risen. If you want to look at a place that is rising, go to China. Oh yes, that's what you call a rise. Structural economic transformation. World view, we will catch up with the United States within the next so years. We will overtake the Americans. We will overtake the Brits. Don't you know that one of the things on the chip on the shoulder of the Chinese is the imperial domination of China by Japan? At a certain point, their defeat, humiliating defeat at the hands of the British in 1839 in the Opium Wars. That's how they signed away Hong Kong to the British, and the British ruled it for 99 years. They are remembering all these things. The humiliation. We will revenge. Not by killing all the British, but just by being greater than they are. I say wherever I speak in the Western world, it's like my American Express card. I never leave home without it. When you see me, you see me, you see my worldview. I don't mess around. I have a purpose in life. I'm results oriented. And I like transformative impact in anything I do. And I do not discriminate against people or amongst people. We are all one. What affects you affects me. What affects me affects you. So let me wrap up by saying that as 2019 approaches, our young people should be very mindful of the enormous responsibility that is on their hands. You have the chance to change the trajectory of this country. You can take it in the direction of real progress, or you can continue to recycle failed politicians who come and sing songs to you every 4 years and distribute stomach infrastructure. 4 years later, they're back. You still don't have a job. Your daughter or your uncle still doesn't have a job. Your sister doesn't have a job. They come and give you 2,000 naira, 3,000 in the village. That's what they do. Tell your uncles in the village. Tell your friends. Enough. Let us look for the types of candidates that can actually help us make real progress in this country. I have been arguing for the creation of a 500 billion naira venture capital fund in this country. Public-private partnership venture capital fund. Scrap the 500 billion naira social intervention fund that the federal government is running. It's money down the drain. It's an empire of waste and corruption. How many people have you seen who got that money? I don't know. Is anybody here receiving it? And what will 5,000 naira a month do for you? You eat it in 2 days, a day. A day. And somebody will tell you, you should re-elect me because I'm giving you 5,000 naira a day, that you have no job. But who's getting it? That doesn't create wealth. If you have the type of intellect I have, you will understand that that is a recycling industry of poverty. And that if you take that 500 billion naira from the budget, call a private venture capital fund and set up this venture capital and let the private sector fund run it. Because if the federal government runs it, what will happen? Politics, federal character. The businesses they fund will fail. Because they will not be giving those funds on the basis of a business case. They will be giving it on the basis of ethnicity, political party affiliations. We have to take care of our boys and all that. But if you give it to the private sector, they will run it well. The federal government is an investor. They take a share of the profits. So your own wealth as receiving the venture capital investment is increasing, and you're creating jobs. All over the world, it's the private sector, especially small and medium enterprises, that creates jobs. So when you set up your small business and you employ eventually 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, whatever, if millions of people are going through the same experience because they have not credit, but equity financing, get the distinction. If you go to the bank, the interest rate, you can't even survive it. 20%, 26%, you can't survive it to start a small business. That is why I'm calling for this venture capital fund. Because it's equity. They can take 40% of your profits can go to the venture capital fund. That's fine, but the 60% is good enough for you. But you're creating wealth, you're creating jobs. That's how our economy can prosper. But because we are led by politicians who cannot think imaginatively, they can't think innovatively, we're wallowing around in poverty. Innovation is the secret of the prosperity of the Western world. Until 300 years ago, the Western world was just as poor as anywhere else. The only people who were rich were the kings and the queens, landed gentry. But as people began to innovate, they invented electricity, the quality of life became better. Venture capitalists invested in those inventions. They mass-produced the inventions. Middlemen are selling, the shops are selling, economies are being created by innovation. Bringing into reality things that didn't exist before. That's how the world is moving ahead. 30 years ago, nobody ever thought about the mobile phone. Technology is a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing. The ability to create, keep regenerating. That is what the wealth of the advanced economies is based on. Why do we think we'll be different? Why do we think we'll be wealthy from oil, selling oil? We can never be. And my happiest day will be the day oil becomes useless. And that's coming soon. Because a lot of the world is going renewables. In 2025, by 2025, most countries of the European Union, France, the UK and so on, they will be manufacturing cars that don't use petrol. So what does that mean? It means we too here have to begin to shift away from the oil economy. But we're not doing that. 40, 50 years, oil is still 90% of our foreign exchange earnings. The real wealth and prosperity of Nigeria will come when we find the many brilliant young boys and girls, young men and women who invent. You see them in the newspapers, manufactured some vehicle. It will be looking very crude, but that is how wealth begins. If you give that guy intellectual property protection, you must produce that crude vehicle and you turn it into a business. He's wealthy, other people are getting wealthy. Somebody in this country, a young boy, invented what is called the Nepalese iron. I've been looking for it in the market, I can't find it. So that when they take light in my house, I can still iron my clothes. That's a very useful invention, at least until we sort out our electricity problem. But is it in the shelves? No. Because we have a government that is not interested in innovation and science and technology. They pay lip service to it, but they do nothing. In 2012, the budget out of the federal government budget for science and technology was 30 billion naira. And that was less than 1% of the federal budget. In 2017, the federal budget is about 8 trillion. The amount allocated to science and technology is, wait for it, 18 billion. And do you know that of that 18 billion, 60% of it goes to recurrent salary, contract, vehicles. Are we serious in this country? Not yet. But it's your responsibility to make sure that these unserious clowns are sent into retirement.
Has been in crisis and jeopardy and so much loss and pain and agony. It's not like we've not had leaders, but hey, see where they've led us to. But today the elephant, not a question of age, but character, competence, identity and integrity will ascend the throne, will sit on the stool of leadership. And so the feast was set like we're waiting for 2019. All gathered from near and far to the feast of making our king a king today. Food was shared, much drink was given, and there was so much music in the air. Ah, Mary Jumpa. Hey, today we shall make the elephant king. One of us must emerge as the one to determine the course of our land for the next season. And so all gathered from near and far, multitudes like the sand on the seashore, to see this transition from the old to the new. Hey, mention it, from the old to the new. Something to attract you. The throne was indeed set. The stool of royalty, the seat of Kabiyesi was set. And well, the golden crown, the golden crown befitting the head of a man or woman of integrity and shape and structure, a man who has taste, and who indeed has the love of the people at heart, not some hungry, selfish, ugly, hungry, rebellious people. The throne was set, the crown was there, the staff was waiting for the one to take over. And guess what? The horse tail was also waiting. And the cry went, who does the crown fit? Tanyo Chaba, who shall be king? Who among you, 300 plus people, has a heart and is willing to serve, not for selfish interest, not for stomach infrastructure, but for the destiny of his own people. Who, like Martin Luther King of blessed memory, is ready to die for the destiny of Nigeria? Who shall be king? People kept on dancing. You know, we love to dance in Nigeria. Even when the matter at hand is going to lead to our death, we would rather dance than tell ourselves the truth. And the dance will fill the atmosphere. Gaga. Iyalu, Sekere. All the drummers came in their professional drumming capacity because they know my people love to dance and wallow in poverty as usual, celebrating their own madness. Who shall be king? The cry went to the masses. Who shall be king? See the golden throne. But listen, this throne is a throne of responsibility. It's not a throne for the hungry. It takes a man with a lion heart to sit on the throne. Who among you? Who among you do you have a lion heart? The cry went, who shall be our leader? And the song went on. And the drum beats kept resounding. And the sound of the same ascended to the skies. And we waited and waited and waited for just one person of integrity that will sit on the throne and say, yes, I dare the odds. I'm ready to face it. I'm willing to support and promote innovation and entrepreneurship and creativity and the wealth of nations. I'm ready. And we waited and waited and waited. And at the peak of celebration, the jubilation began to go down. Let's not forget the reason why we gathered. We've eaten and we're bellyful. We've drunk and we're already drinking to stupor. We've danced and we're tired, we're sweating like Christmas goat because of this dance. The tune melodious, the beat rhythmic. But hey, our destiny is attached to that throne. Who is wise? Who has the heart? Who is authentic enough to ascend that throne? The seat is waiting. Hey, is it not just a seat? Just a seat. Who shall ascend this throne? Who shall carry this crown on his head? Who? And we waited that day, that fateful day, for just one human being, somebody who has some human blood flowing in his veins, and we waited and waited and waited. Ah, Nigeria, I pray you will not wait for this long, but we waited. Sit on their throne. Because those who want to sit on the throne are in their campuses and in their schools trying to get a degree. A degree just eat bread and egg. Eat bread and egg. Just bread and egg for the rest of their lives. Those who ought to sit on the throne, many of them are on the street in the sun, here in the hot scorching sun, and trying to make some sense out of their lives. Some of them are hawking pure water. Some of them are those children you see when you're walking in town and you look at them and you wonder, this ones don't belong to our class. The throne is waiting. There's vacancy in the kingdom. Those who ought to sit on this throne, many of them are attending and will yet attend talks like this. And guess what happens at the end of the day? To your tent, O Israel! To your tent, O Israel! Business continues as usual. Yet the throne is vacant! Who's going to sit on this throne? My people, after learning each other, truly want to make the elephant king. But if the elephant doesn't arrive, if the elephant doesn't emerge, it's not about age, it's not about age, not about religion, not about culture, not about your ethnicity. It's about competence. But if the elephant doesn't arrive, listen, sir. We will invent that elephant. Like it or not, we will put an elephant on this throne. And guess what? The cycle of poverty and hatred and bloodshed and destruction and corruption will continue. This elephant we emerge, we invent, put August on the throne, because he did not come from you, he came from us. In closing, fellow youths of Nigeria, are we going to keep warming the hills and benches? Remember that seat you're sitting in was invented by someone. You paid him to get that service. What are you going to invent? What are you going to change? When will you ascend the throne that is meant for you? You may choose to remain on the seat for the rest of your lives, but guess what? Some idiots will continue to tell you how to think. Thank you.
just like to take 3 questions. 3. And I would like to be democratic, so we did 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And a female or 2? Mama? 2 females. Okay, so just we need 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. So we need 1 person from here. Who is here?
My question to people that I feel that are quite more learned than us, especially in the whole political situation, is I don't think a lot of talk has gone on about leadership precisely. You know, just that one person that stands up there and deploys different activities to be able to bring us all into a direction. But what I personally have not heard a lot of people talk about is the systems itself. The systems that leader will be landing on. Because what we found out a lot of times in the country is that, people might have good intentions, but the reality of it is that if you have a fractured system that is exactly not coming together to help you achieve purpose, how do we work that out as we also are looking for the right leader to be able to lead the cause? Thank you.
Indeed, it's about systems. Now, I would say that one of the first challenges any leader of Nigeria coming in now, and any leader of most of our states will face, is the challenge of building systems. What is a leader's function? A leader's function is to envision, to inspire, to motivate, and to take risks, calculated, well-thought risks. And one of those things is also organization. So, the leader's function, coming in now, the new generation leaders, will build the system you're talking about. The old political leadership, the current political leadership, cannot build that. Simply because their worldview is not going in that direction. So you can't get water out of stone. It's not possible. So that is why this question of your PVC is very important. Because it is with that PVC that you can bring in leaders who can build systems. Systems matter. Because the leader is there serving the overall purpose, but without a structure under him or her, nothing happens. Nothing happens. So one of the first functions of leadership in Nigeria is building those systems. I have a new book coming out on Monday. It's called Big. Build, Innovate, and Grow. Big. My vision for Nigeria, or for our country. In it, I talk about the importance of institutions. You will notice that in this country, our institutions are run down now, heavily. You will not find any institution in Nigeria today that is truly independent of the politicians. And any country that is like that is dying a slow death. Because it means that those institutions are being used for partisan political purposes. They're not being strengthened to adjudicate or to create a level playing field for everyone. So the next leader's first task, systems. How do you set up those systems? First of all, the human capital. You must get the right people in the right places. That's how you build a first-class team around you. Who will your ministers be? Who will your special advisors be? Who will be the heads of your parastatals? Is a parastatal a place where you go and put somebody who helped you in a campaign, carry naira, but is not technically competent? No. But you can find technical people to head those parastatals, empower them to deliver results. That's what we need. So thank you for asking that question. It is part of the leader's job to set up those systems, but I am not pessimistic about the current political class being able to build those systems, because it does not serve their interests. Yeah.
Yes, I'm calling Sonkwe from UI. So my question comes is from what you said about voting, not political party but individuals. Now, if you look at the selection process of our leaders today, you see they undergo primaries in various parties. I as a youth have someone that I feel this person is credible. But when it comes to selection in the primary, you find out that most of the people that select leaders of the party are delegates, and you look at these delegates are still those cocoon. They are you find the percentage of youths there that can voice for the youths that they want, the percentage is very low. So now how can we resolve this? Because you see that these people will also elect their own people there. And now I'll have this person, they have ruled that person out. And when I come to vote, I see that this person is not there. How can we resolve it? Thank you.
Thank you. Democracy is evolving. It's in a state of evolution. We will not necessarily get to the perfect place today or tomorrow. But so long as our citizens stay engaged, so long as you keep voting in your numbers, and if the wrong leader emerges through the party process, punish the wrong leader at the elections. Inflict political punishment for failed leadership. The more you do that, the more competent leaders will begin to emerge. Because parties will see that if they want to win, they have to field better candidates. This is the way the system is. You see what I'm saying? So if your candidate, your perfect candidate does not emerge, take heart, still go and vote. Don't be turned away, don't now become apathetic. By the way, there are a lot of new parties, of course, now that are coming up. Many of them, they will all have primaries, I believe, but they will not, many of them are not going to use the delegate system. The delegate system has introduced a lot of corruption in the political parties in this country. So, but if a party just has a general congress, every member of the party come and select the candidate. I think it's a better way of doing things. So my challenge to those new parties, of course, is that they need to understand that if they want to wrest power from the old order, the current political class, many of those parties will need to come together, not necessarily fusing as parties, but to have a slate of candidates. They can come together and say, for the presidency, we are all voting for this one person. If each small party produces a presidential candidate, they're just splitting up the votes. So these are again practical things. Chief from Goa is here. Yes, so as we say in Igbo land, let those who are being spoken to use their tongue to count their teeth. So these are practical things, you know, in terms of how do we move forward in this country. We must not all have our own candidate. The new parties, for example, they can come together and say, for governorship, party 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parties, we are backing this candidate. But for local government elections, we'll field our own candidates. Do you understand? So these are practical ways that things can go forward. So that's my response to the question. Yeah.
I would want you to talk about bring to consciousness the role of the youth. We need to understand the fact that it is not only during an election that a democratic government can be changed. Yes. I need you to enlighten us on how we as youth can take active role in pressurizing the government, especially the legislators and the rest of them. I think we need to understand how to use the recall process. Yeah. If we are not properly represented, yes, as youths, we have the right to come together and recall whoever is representing us. Absolutely. And this would make the senators and the rest of them to sit up, especially when it comes to impeachment. So, sir, I would want you to tell us how we can all come together as youths to work together to pressurize the government and to make them act.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, we talk a lot about leadership, but the situation in which we find ourselves in Nigeria today, in which our so-called leaders have failed, that shifts the responsibility from the leaders to the citizens. The citizen, in the absence of leadership, the citizen must act. The citizen must step into the gap left by failed leadership. And how will the citizen do it? By protests, mobilizing massive demonstrations. That is very important. Going into the media, criticizing failed leadership on specific things so that the voice of the people is heard in between elections. It's not just at election time, like she says. For the legislators, it is one of the better characteristics of our constitution that there is this provision for recall. But how many of our legislators are representing us well? And what have you done about it? Not much. In one case, there was an attempt at recall, which I believe is still going on. I don't know. Is it? I don't know. Where is that? It's there. Okay. Well, that is part of the struggle. They can kill it today, but they won't kill it forever. Don't be discouraged. Use the recall process. Anytime you find that your representative in the legislature is not doing well, come together, as many as possible, not just the 50% that is required. If you can get 70% of the signatures to recall that person, do it. The more it is done, the more difficult it will be to kill it. It was killed because it has never been done before. It's just one solitary attempt. So it was easy for them to organize and squash it. If it's done across the land, if you see your senator during the Senate, it is shit, especially if you see it more than once. Maybe on one particular night he was late in meetings and is very tired. But if every time you watch the Senate proceedings, your senator is, then you should know what to do. Because the guy is there on holiday, or the woman is there on holiday. So yeah. And so what I'm saying is, the recall process must now come more and more into our public consciousness. It's not enough in our public consciousness, actually. But we need to activate it more and more. So, and it's your duty as the youth in this country to begin to lead these initiatives. The older people are risk averse. They don't like taking risks. They say, well, yeah, it's not working, but we just manage. You are young people, hot-blooded, young-blooded. Don't take that. Organize yourselves and act. This is a season of anomy in Nigeria, as I say in my new book. But I'm not one for Jeremiahs. I don't do hand-wringing and waving. I'm not a wailer. I act. Talk and do, as they say, right? Yes, that's my belief. Talk and do. If you're talking, be doing it. Don't sit down wailing and gnashing your teeth. No, because action produces consequences. So that's what I want to encourage our youth. And one of the ways in which you must act that will produce consequences is that you must get your PVs. Please, please, please. Don't sit around on your behind in the internet venting. There are people who are very big activists. The only place you will see them is on social media. If you call a demonstration against some terrible thing that has happened, you won't see them. They will be busy typing away. But if you don't ask them if they have a voter's card, they don't have one. That's what in America is called all throat and no voice. You know what that means? You're all throat but no voice. If you have throat without voice, then I'm sorry for you, you're ineffective. You can just as well sit down and be writing the book of Lamentations in the Bible. It doesn't get you anywhere. Thank you.
Professor again, thank you very much. I hope we are learning a lot today. Yes, I hope the conversation is enlightening. Yes. So we would have now the panel session, and I would really like us to take some notes from this because this is going to be mind-blowing. So first, I would just like to introduce to you Mrs. Idem Osai. And after I'm done reading this, I would like to invite her to the podium. All right, so Mrs. Dorothy Idem Osai is a lawyer and executive director of a non-profit, MAYA, with a Bachelor of Law degree from the Obafemi Awolowo University and an MA in Cultural and Media Studies from the University of Ibadan. She has 8 years professional experience spanning development, legal practice, media, and non-profit management. Through further professional development and capacity building, she holds a certificate in communication for development from the Commonwealth Virtual University, as well as a certificate in citizen journalism, new media, from the Ellen Getty School of Journalism in Israel. She equally holds a certificate in civic and non-profit leadership from the School of Public Service and Community Solutions, Arizona State University. Since 2011, IDEM has been involved in youth civic engagements, education, and technical consultation for youth political inclusion through her organization, MAYEN. In 2017, her organization launched the participatory budgeting in 3 secondary schools in Oyo State, setting up civic hubs tagged Boys and Girls for Democracy, and training 68 students on taking part in their school spending and decision making, while also providing voter education to over 400 students. Because of her work in developing youth civic education strategies and advocating for youth political inclusion in September 2017, IDEM was invited by the African Governance Architecture Secretariat of the African Union Commission to participate in the West and Central African Regional Technical Consultation on enhancing youth involvement in the electoral process. IDEM is currently the Oyo State Youth Leader for COA Political Party and is a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome Mrs. IDEM. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. All right. She's a beautiful, wonderful, loving mama. Barrister Moghalu is a recipient of several awards for his distinction in open development and leadership, including an award from the President Barack Obama and the Lead City University Honorary Award for Youth Engagement and National Development. You're welcome, sir. Timmy is a technology lawyer and a professional speaker with core capacity in open governance, leadership management, and youth engagements. He litigated and defended the rights of communities in a number of high-profile cases, some of which involved the Nigerian presidents and others involving public utilities, such as Power Holding Company of Nigeria. He is the co-founder, Youth in Motion, which operates actively in Nigeria, Liberia, and in New York, as a movement focused on promoting institutional opportunities for young people across Africa and in the diaspora. One of the Youth in Motion signature program is Democracy in Action, which promotes democracy by providing a platform for young leaders to closely interact with parliamentarians at the state level. He is a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, a member of the International Association of Information Technology Lawyers, with endorsements from the World Intellectual Property Organization, a fellow of the Presidential Precincts, a founding member of the Commonwealth Alliance of Youth Entrepreneurs, West Africa, and a trustee of the Nigerian Internet Society, NIS, with affiliation to the International Internet Society, and an advisory board member of Feed to Grow. Feed to Grow Africa. Please, may we welcome Barrister Timmy Olagunju. That's an able-bodied, highly edifying and strong man. You're welcome, sir. I'd like to invite economics. He has also bagged a master's degree in media and communication from Pan Atlantic University. Babatokwe has a keen interest in public policy and how economics determine the course of the life of the average person, both locally and globally. He has written extensively on the knowledge of economy, true federalism, economic diversification, and national planning. In 2012, he organized the first conference on the knowledge economy and has been a facilitator at First Academy, the training school of First Bank. Babatokwe believes that the quality of people in Nigeria has greater value than the crude oil. Pass the books, keep the oil. He also believes that Nigeria's problems require commercial solutions and that the wealth creation will solve most of Nigeria's problems. Babatokwe Falade Onikoyi is the CEO of the Onikoyi Hamilton Consulting, a human capital development firm. He plays basketball, listens to R&B and classical music. Please, can we please appreciate Mr. Babatokwe Onikoyi? I mean, it's obvious, it's really that tall. Landscape in Nigeria with convergent proactive journalism media platforms. The company owns the radio programs State of the Nation, running on Rave FM Oshogo, Inspiration FM Lagos, and Ibadan. More stations in Nigeria are soon starting to run the program. The company's online radio. The company is an online radio and is also presently offline. Before establishing Bilficom Media in 2016, Edmond worked with the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, FRCN, as a freelance reporter. He joined Splash FM in 2007, where he produced and presented Bullseye, Eagle's Eye, Village Square, Economic Searchlight, and The Voices. Edmond is the vanguard of instilling good governance in Nigeria, pursuing the cause with vigor, not minding whose ox is God. His approach includes exposing corruption through investigative reporting and research writing. Knowing that the future of the country is defined by the mindset and the actions of the citizens. He is involved in advocacies for citizen action for good governance. Since 2007, he has intensely engaged policymakers, interrogating their ideas, actions and projections in a bid to strengthen Nigeria and Africa's quest for development. He is one of the accredited journalists that covered the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals at the United Nations headquarters in New York in 2015. He participated in the 2014 Global Media Forum in Germany. Edmond has a Bachelor of Engineering degree, Electronics and Electrical Engineering. He also bagged a Bachelor of Science degree. He was a first-class graduate in international relations. He has a postgraduate diploma in theater arts and a master's degree in communication and language arts. He holds a master's of science degree in political science. Edmond Moghalu is married with two lovely, beautiful children. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome Mr. Edmond Moghalu. Thank you very much. Now, he is a man for the people. This is no political statement, sir. But he is here because he loves us. And he's going to help us drive this conversation. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, please jam your hands as we start this conversation for this wonderful family. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my chief salesman. You have successfully sold me also. Please pick up forms for my... I'm running for office. You know, it says I'm a fine boy. I'm not even sure my family has said so. So, thank you very much, Fidelis, and it's been an awesome conversation and thought-provoking, and has driven us to have deep, you know. So people were standing, you know, but I think he spared us some of those things, you know. But what he was able to do was to build his conversation on certain pillars. And first, that it wasn't about being young automatically qualifies you for office, or being young automatically is equal to competence, you know. And he made, I'm sure many young people sat down to think, you know, about themselves. Even me myself, ask myself certain real questions. You know, but I've gotten the book. If you come to my house, the first thing you will see is a bookshelf. So it's not about sales. The man said he has a pension. And he's been smart enough to say that there are even two copies. There's the hard copy, and there's the soft one like this. And I think this goes for 1,005. I have gotten one, you know, and the other is really cheap. You see, people who know this say it's cheap. I'm sure some people have calculated the number of bread and egg that they will eat, you know, and all of that. But very interesting to have this conversation. So when you are in the room, you know, somebody says something. It says when they raise the curtain on you, be rehearsing. So the day they raise the curtain on you, may you not be found wanting. It's better to be ashamed, you know, to embarrass yourself when the curtain has not been raised. And you are building confidence. So the day the curtain is raised, so please, you know, I know why. You know, I work with students and I understand the challenges, you know, with young people. So please, 3 of you can come together. Yeah, if I read for 2 weeks, you said you go, you understand timetable, and you can even establish a book club to actually debate this, you know, and all of that. So, very interesting conversation. I will tell you to get that. Which now takes us to this, to discuss leadership. leadership from various angles. So in this conversation, we'll be looking at leadership from various angles. We'll be looking at the role of the media in shaping public opinion and gaining trust. How would the media be able to drive the right message to the grassroots? So there are just 200 people here, 260 at last count. Now, Nigeria has 180 million people. How can the media drive that message? That is very important. Because something has happened. There's something called the state of learned helplessness. So people say, oh, that one. No, the politics is not for him, or leadership is not for that kind of person. And then the people have stayed in a place that is defeated. How can the media help shape that opinion? We're also looking at based on how can I galvanize resources in running for office, in building competence, you know, and Timmy will be sharing from his experience in trying to run for office currently, you know, the lessons he has learned, failures, and how do you achieve the right kind of collaborations, okay? Tokwe will be building a lot from the angle of economics. Tokwe has a very simple theory. Look, create wealth. All these stories. You are chasing people that stole money and they steal money. Tokwe has a theory about information gap, and he uses the Koyi registry. That where there's information gap, corruption thrives. So how do we build young people who can have the right skill sets? So it will not be, remember what happened in Nigeria? Why the military came back? They said democracy, democracy. Then they said the civilians came. And then what happened? They said they were not what? So we will not give our detractors an excuse when we will finally get to that promised land. Then Adam, I don't know, it's awkward. I don't know how, is it Adam or, you know, we'll be talking about, you're all laughing. Okay, you don't know why. Adam is my wife, so you know, it's having this, but these are conversations we really have at home. It debates, we have these conversations as well, and she is very much interested in, so that we don't make progress in 50 years again and we leave half of the population behind. That young women face two barriers. They are young, first, that's a challenge. Two, you're a woman, they tell you to shut up, you should not speak. And then somebody has a theory that says, how do you win with half of your team on the bench? Do you understand? So how do we have this conversation really? So those are the critical areas, and then we will open again for questions. There must be a lot of questions. So Prof, all of us will be back to take out questions. Feel free to disagree constructively, divergent thinking, okay? Good. So, Timmy, I'm sure on the minds of everybody here, people are inspired. People are saying, nah, it's time to take this thing, you know, we've been charged. I think we'll be served double espresso, this, you know, people are charged from the conversation on the worldview of Nigeria. But you as a young person, you are trying to run for office. How has it been in trying to organize resources in participating in this process? What has it been like for you?
Well, to be frank, without being who wants to be a millionaire, the truth about it is that it is difficult and challenging. Because you see, when you come from a culture, a foundation, you see, the ladies know this better. If the foundation be destroyed, what can the makeup artist do? That's a comic relief. Now, the ladies know this better. So, now the fact is this, foundation of politics in this part of the world is more about the discussion around money. That's the truth. And so when you go to major political parties and yet you start to get involved in the conversation, what they tell you is what they tell a 70-year-old person. They do not particularly look at the peculiarity of your challenge as a young person or as a young professional who is trying to make a difference. They lump you together in the same category as a 60, 70-year-old person who has acquired all the wealth, some ill-gotten and some genuinely. And so that dichotomy is not really clear. And so that's a huge challenge, firstly. Secondly is the fact that when it comes to politics as it is, there's usually the demand side and the supply side. You see, no matter how much we seek to supply good leadership, to supply competent, skilled leadership for the political parties, the truth about it is this: is there a demand from the people for competent leadership? And I think that is where this conversation really comes before. The demand for good leadership, the demand to come from a place of understanding that this person seems to have a track record, a legacy to deliver competence than this other person, because he who is faithful in little, much can be delivered into her heads or his heads. That ability to understand that is seemingly lacking. And I can understand, because of years of military interregnum, right? So we got democracy around 1999. So like Prof said,
you know, it's interregnum. You know this.
Okay.
So
okay.
People hear interregnum. I see people doing, but they might not be sure.
Okay, so we had years of military rule for a long period of time. Some of us were born into that. You know, so it's really very challenging to get into politics to try to pass a message across when the message is not the message of money. And so, is that the case for everyone? No. The logic about galvanizing resources lies in the untapped population. And who are the untapped population? The untapped population is that young person who seemingly has a level of understanding, but then has decided to tweet rather than vote. Now, the untapped population is that elite who decides to watch channel news on the day of the election rather than come out to vote. It's that elite who has a professorial degree in political science but does not even understand how party politics play at the world level. And I've left party politics to it's their thing, it is not our thing. You see, and so primarily speaking, those kind of persons seem to understand the message. So for us, rather than follow the strategy of the money bags, what's the strategy of the money bags? The strategy of the money bags is simply this. Go, bring some money, distribute it amongst this set of people, and then disappear. Right? But we need to evolve a new strategy. Because frankly speaking, there are more people on the other side, on this side, on the untapped population side, than people who have been tapped, who are motivated by pecuniary and financial reasons. There are more people, but they are docile. So, what I have personally done is to galvanize the minds of those untapped population, as much as I am also trying to discuss with the tapped population, motivated by other means that are pecuniary. And out of those untapped population, we've been able to use technology, votetimi.com, to leverage on volunteers. Because you see, what we do for free for our nation will later bring us a fee of good governance. And so, people that understand that language are beginning to come on board. Interestingly, certain persons even say, oh, Timmy, we will donate 5,000, 10,000. And then I have done what we call a white paper of how much my expected income will be if I get into the parliamentary seat as a member of the House of Reps. And then how much is required of me to run for office.
Socialist country, what is driving us? What's our worldview? Right? What's ABC's worldview? What's PDP's worldview? From what we are seeing, it's just simply share the money, share the goodies, give us board appointments. You understand? Where the predominant worldview in Nigeria is fighting corruption. If you contrast that with China, China fights corruption in the ruling party. Because when you fight corruption in the ruling party, corruption doesn't get out into the public. So take your people to jail, send them to jail if you see them stealing. Don't come and disturb me that I'm in my bedroom with tales of corruption, this one. Are you corrupt? You know, those are the things. So what's our worldview? What's dominating our development? In China, for instance, they tell you that all the truths, socialism, capitalism, right, that were created, when they were created, the truths of those things were not exhausted. They were only created to trail the blaze the trail of development. So what they are simply telling you is, even socialism develops, capitalism it develops. What sort of capitalism do we want to use? And how do we, when we create these ideologies, how do we then program these ideologies into our daily operations in Nigeria? So that's that about ideologies and ideology development and programming. The third thing is scientific development, right? Everything we do must be dictated by scientific development. Go to every country in the world that has developed. The steam engine, the industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, all these revolutions are about science. So if we are doing anything with analog thinking, we are wasting our time. If you go to Israel, Israel is an arid region, but today, it used to be an arid region, but today they are a leading nation when it comes to agriculture. That's what science can do. That is what science can do. So, if we are doing anything and we don't have science behind it, please, or if you are doing anything, those of us that want to contest or those that are in positions, and you don't have science behind it, you need to rethink. The fourth thing is governance. What model of governance are you going to use? I think currently in Nigeria, the major problem is the structure of the country. We are operating a unitary system instead of a more federalist structure that would have engendered development at the local levels. So if you are running for office or you are currently in a position, you need to figure that out. What is the most effective or most optimal form of governance, that model that I need to use? Effective governance, basically. Then last thing is basic economics. You need to understand economics. I think that's one major problem we're having in Nigeria. You need to understand economics. Inflation, what is deflation, how does rent controls affect us, what is a recession? A good number of us don't know what recession is. You know, I get that question a lot. So if you're running for office, please, you need to figure that out. All right? What monetary policy are we currently running? You know, how does it affect us? How do we produce, you know, at value? How do we reduce our consumption of foreign goods? You know, and all these basic economics questions. You need to have a very strong hold on economics. So basically, that's what the model is. So what I'm going to do is, I'll do a white paper on this. That will be more elaborate, and I'll share with people that attended this event. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. So, good. Please try and make it in infographics. It's very important. Simply, you know, if you do a very, Tapa is also is a scholar. So sometimes some of us can't fly at this level. You know, you need to calm down a bit. But coming down, I'll still come back to it because the media plays a very strong role. Eden, there's a strong conversation for young women, young people to play an important role in leadership and politics. You know, what has been your experience so far? You work with young kids in secondary schools, teaching them, you know, basic tenets of democracy, simulating what democracy is and all of that. Why do you think we've had challenges so far in understanding, you know, democracy?
Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to Prof for making today possible. And I'm very excited that we're talking to ourselves, you know, young people. I think today this room presents a very powerful metaphor of young women's non-inclusion in politics. Because if you take, you know, a very casual, you know, sample of the attendance, you mentioned 260 participants. And if we check it in numbers, I doubt if the females number up to 60. And if we go further and ask, you know, more questions, quite possibly a number of them, a good number of the females here, and I do not say this with any intent to, you know, upset you, we're probably coerced here. This is the reality of young women, you know, coming into the space. And for me, it's a function of, I put it down to three things. We do not have the disposition to engage. That's the first thing. We were educated out of it. We were socialized out of it. You know, our entire experience as citizens in this country, you know, derails that consciousness. That awareness, you know, is not awakened in the young woman. So, for me, any country that talks about development without gender parity is in a cycle of self-defeat. It's self-sabotage. You cannot move forward if all of us in this room are not competent. If we're 100 in this room, let there be equal competence across the gender spectrum. Let the girls be, especially now that we are no longer, existing as countries within borders. We are existing, like you have all mentioned, in a global marketplace that demands skills, that demands, intellect and competence. Those parameters they're not gender respective. Once you go to the global marketplace and you know your onions, be you male or female, the world will seek your skills. They want you. Young women have to rise up and, be interested. But of course, it's a case of self-fulfilling prophecy, Somebody is socialized out of something. They're not aware that they have a problem in the first instance to begin to tell them, oh, opt into the space, venture into the space. We need to do that work. There has to be that external motivation, that extrinsic motivation to get our young women involved. Let me tell you the reality. If we say produce 10 leaders from our midst, what will happen is that the very values that underpin democracy, which is representation, will come into play. And what representation essentially means is that all of us are split in interests. That's the truth. We are all, one Nigeria, but we have peculiar needs and interests. The minute you say produce 10, what happens is that all the different categories of interest want to ensure that their voice is reflected in decision making, that they have a representative who, when given the opportunity to decide, will make sure that their interests are represented on the decision making table. How do you produce a nation for several years and call yourselves a democratic country and you do not have women actively deciding in that space? Now we're witnessing an era of tokens, because they want to be in conformity with the global West, with what the entire the West is saying. So they begin to pull from their ranks, the same so-called political class, women who, just because of their gender, fit the bill. But then that takes me to the second aspect, which is capacity. That same term, we've called it here, we've talked about competence, we've talked about its capacity. You must build your knowledge, your skill sets for this, for participation. Prof talked about informal participation and the formal structures. How do I engage? My sister there, I was happy that the lady spoke up. She talked about the principle of recall. When a citizen does not even know that that instrument exists in their favor, how do you act? How do you utilize something that the Constitution has vested you with when you live in ignorance of this, this vital requirement? Then the process that you must instigate, you must trigger to actually do it, you lack knowledge of it. We are a citizenry that has come out of a military past where we were, put in a state of amnesia, deliberate and intentional, darkness in the aspect of civic education. For me, that's the baseline. A child is born, and that child is a citizen of a country. You must begin to teach that child the principles and the rules by which he or she exists within that entity. What are the rights that they enjoy? What are the obligations that they owe that entity? That is lacking in Nigeria. We are a generation that has come out of an era, and we are not aware that we missed out of a civic education that is required to drive democracy. So we are trying to have, the way this, I think it's Davido that says, follow me. It can't happen by magic. We need to go back and raise our children to understand their civic duties. The Americans raise their children that when you are 18 and you are of age, you must go to the ballot box. And there is voter efficacy that comes with voter education. You must know what to do when you are at the ballot box. So there's capacity that must be built. And when you are building the capacity of the young men, build the capacity of the young women. The sisters who are here, go into the spaces where they are teaching you the knowledge of the rules, the regulations, the legislation that want, first and foremost, authorize you or give you the right to play in the space. Two, that express the pathways, that show you the processes that you must trigger to actually participate. And then finally, I come to the pathways. This is joining the structures. You have to understand the structures. I look at young people. Young people are more interested in going for vigils, night vigils, Wednesday, Bible study. I'm not denigrating that. I'm a Christian, and I'm sure the Muslims have their own devotions. But look, you cannot pray to God to change government and you don't know what to do in terms of action to change governments. Secondly, after God has blessed you and your businesses as young professionals, you will exist within the entity called Nigeria. You will drive on Nigerian roads. You will use Nigerian hospitals. You will go to Nigerian schools and your children will be sent to Nigerian schools. the quality of those institutions and services that you will benefit from are determined in the political space. So therefore, as interested as you are in going for Bible study and all the things that we make sacrifices to go for, let us also be interested in going for meetings. Find the nearest structure, the political structure that you can plug into. I go for my party meetings, and the days I don't go, my party, even when I am challenged, I go with my daughter. That's the situation that, I find myself in. But I make it a point of duty. And I think more and more women, young women, have to, rise up to that requirement. And men as well. We must be interested in how our communities are developed. The welfare of our communities are decided. And at that ward or grassroots level, start. Begin to demonstrate those leadership skills. Leadership will not just emerge, or it won't just happen. Young people will not stand outside the door and shout, "Not too young to run," and automatically they will throw some, what's that thing they give you when they're swearing you in? They will throw it at you and you will be sworn in. There is a process, a rigorous process you must undertake, and you cannot escape from it. Begin now, go for those meetings. Be deciding the affairs of your community. It's training, and in the process, you're being molded in party ideology, party values. You also are molding and shaping party values. You are deciding who the people that will emerge out of that party become. Who are those people who will emerge? So if tomorrow COA fields candidates, even if I am not the one who is fielded as a candidate, I had a say in who emerged. So that to that extent, even when that person becomes a governor, I have contributed at that lower rung to determine who are the candidates that even come out in the first instance. I think the missing link is one, a people, an entire citizenry who have been denied civic education. Two, young women not being aware that they are excluding themselves unconsciously out of this space. Three, the need for capacity building for young women, targeted now. I'm not talking about general youths. I'm talking about women, young women, identifying young girls. And please, there's a tendency on campuses to be pushing girls to run for vice all the time. Vice. There's nothing wrong with young girls running for the president in your faculty or at the student union level. Don't accept anybody that tells you vice. So let's begin to test these things, and let's see whether we can also lead as competently as the male counterparts. Thank you.
They are taking over. It has unique challenges. Before I look at the challenges, Eden talked about the challenges of women. I have just 2 children, and they are girls. And I can tell you, nobody can stop them from flying. Even tradition can't. Even the social structure of the state can't. Because they were born birds. Immediately they were born, I saw their wings. Sweden, I have no fear. There are 2 emerging leaders coming from my family. And why am I saying this? I have noticed the limitation of society. And before I gave birth to my children, I said, this is how they will break the limitations. And I'm walking them through that part. I'm from the eastern part of the country. And I also know that a woman is powerful. So when I see the discussion of women being limited, I say sometimes it is the woman that limits herself. Yes. Let's come to the media. I will use myself as a personal example. I won't want to discuss the media broadly because I won't have the time to resolve the conflicts I will raise, and I might be misinterpreted because it's a very sensitive sector. There's the complex challenge of ownership. And there's the complex challenge of profit. So if you have a media that is bogged down by profit and ownership, The next question is, what kind of agenda will it set? When my profile was read, you could see my first degree was electrical and electronics engineering. All of a sudden, I'm a media man. It was not by accident. I've always had this revolutionary instinct as a university student. I kept asking questions. How will society develop? And I discovered that engineering was going to limit my ability to instigate development. It was going to corner me. So I thought, why not run on a media platform and discuss your own idea of development while you learn? So that was the spirit that moved me into the media. But what ideas am I going to discuss if I'm not educated enough? So you can see the reason why I wanted to understand how the world works. And I went to study international relations. I wanted to know how, after more than 30 years of being under the colonialship of Japan, South Korea emerged. I wanted to know what happened after Japan gave up the war in 1945. Went in. What did it do? How did it emerge all of a sudden as the second biggest economic power? So international relationship gave me some good understanding. But it was not good enough. How do I communicate the idea? What am I saying here? Those who want to set agenda must have clear understanding of the subject. And you must know how to communicate it. I decided to do a master's degree in communication and language arts. Not because I was looking for a job. No. But this wasn't enough. I needed to understand the politics that leads to actions in the international system. And politics is domestic, isn't it? So I went to do a master's degree in political science. And if you listen to me on radio, sometimes I'm dramatic. The way I raise my voice, bring it down, the way I even use my words. There's only one person that speaks like Edmondo Bilo. And it's Edmondo Bilo. So if you try to copy me, you mess yourself up. You see, I got that from from studying a postgraduate diploma in theater arts. Now, what does this mean? I am prepared. Now I've arrived. So if you discover the Edmondo Bilo you listened to about 8 years ago is so different from the Edmondo Bilo you listened to on Saturday in Ibadan. Yeah. And from the Edmondo Bilo you listen to on Sunday in Lagos. I'm here. Now I'm saying this, for you to set agenda for development, not just setting agenda. My mission is to set agenda for development. So I must understand what even development is. We've talked about competence in analyzing public issues. Tope talked about it. Emeka, you also raised the issue. First, the journalist must understand the policy issues. If I bring Kingsley Moghalu on my show, I will want to talk about development. Because one thing that struck me about his book was the mention of Africa as the last frontier. I read the book immediately it was released. But I didn't even read it well before I interviewed him. But I think I need to interview him again. Because now I have a broader understanding of his argument. And I want to compare his argument to the likes of Farid Zakaria. I'm going to bring different books. If Moghalu must be president, he must be telling us policy issues that we understand. But he needs a journalist like me to also help interpret it. Therefore, the journalist is a reader. If you see my library, it's bigger than the books here. I have a huge library, both in Lagos and Ibadan. Huge. If you go to booksellers there, I'm one of their biggest customers. And I'm not a rich guy. Because I'm on a mission to use the media to drive development. So I must have these competences. If you listen to me on Saturday, Who did that interview? Professor Kingsley Moghalu from Lincoln University. Now, there's a new dimension to my media. In the past, you will hear Governor Ajimobi on the show. You will hear the likes of Tokyo. You will hear Senator Teslim Folari. I'm not saying it's wrong to talk to them. But I also discovered in my analysis, after 4 years as a media man, I said, who are those driving the discourse? The people driving the discourse are the people holding the state to ransom. Because I discovered after I did an evaluation of my program Voices, I gave them 65% airtime. In 1 year, 65% airtime. Just imagine giving auxiliary 2 hours, a talk of NURTW, and he's making his grammatical blunders, telling me where he kept the gun and where he did not keep the guns, and people were clapping for me. Edmondo Bilo, the Odeshi guy, who goes into the bush to speak to the big guys. But that was not the information you needed. Yes, we will tell the story of auxiliary, but the time for auxiliary on radio was just unnecessary. Because the stories were not inspiring development.
Yeah.
Then I said, okay, in my new media, I discovered at a point in time, for a media, a vibrant media to emerge, you need a lot of independence.
Yeah.
At Splash FM, I had my independence, don't misinterpret it. But at the point, I needed my own system to drive it. So I registered a company called Bificom Media and Systems. Nobody has asked me what the systems mean. Systems of governance. The biggest office I have is the Department of Political Ideas. Now what am I doing? I'm trying to create a media sensitive to development. It's a small group because he's not a rich guy, so he's taking time to fly. In that doing that, you must set up platforms. You see, one of the reasons I don't support small political parties at the point was I felt they were not strategic. You want to become governor. The first question I ask you, where is your strategy for media? Agenda setting means you are capturing media. Tinubu has captured some segments of the media,
Yes.
and it's not illegitimate.
Yes. Yes.
It is not illegitimate. He's telling his own story.
Yeah.
So why are the good guys not capturing that nice segment of the media? And I just discovered that the 80% of the media has not been captured. So the Moghalus can capture it to tell the story of development. And sadly, you don't need licenses from NBC anymore. Somebody said, Edmond, why not you go and tell people you are very popular, why not you just go and meet one person, they'll bring the money, you establish your own radio station. I said, no, internet has made it cool for me.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to establish an online radio. And I tried. But you see, I didn't have the finances to run it professionally, I shut it down. But it will bounce back again. So why am I saying this? For a media to set agenda, you must produce journalists that are also very intelligent. You must have journalists that are studying the books of the Moghalus. We must also use the power of language. I listen to local programs. Yoruba language is powerful.
Yes.
Yes, some radio stations are really doing well. We must give it to them. But radio stations will not do well when they are driven, when they are not driven by philosophers. So we need to look at the radio station management again, because it's the most popular medium to drive change, especially in an underdeveloping country. Let me leave it at this. The discussion continues.
I think it's the saddest thing that can happen to anyone, where you can't find expression. But on the other hand, politics has a way of defining everything. Then in response to Emeka's actual question, I think it's time that we start getting strategic about our political choices. Not individual choices now, but group choices. What do I mean? I personally feel like this approach of go and get your PVC and vote is not going to work. Not now. Yes. These are the things that need to happen. One, why is a party like COA that has such ideals, you know, and a lot of quality people, you know, fighting around the country? Why has COA not faced one state and win it fair and square, then move on? Tinubu did it. He had Lagos. From Lagos, he expanded to other places in Southwest, and today he's in the APC. Ladoja took over Oyo at a certain time because he concentrated his resources, right? So it's not just let's go and vote. We need to be scientific about taking power, right? We need to be scientific about taking power. Then another thing is that the whole approach of Nigeria, let's cause change across Nigeria, I think we need to revisit it because development most likely will come from states rather than from top to bottom. So what are we doing in terms of, you know, first liberating states that we have control over, you know, then the thing moves on and on. Then lastly, I don't know if you got that point. Instead of concentrating on winning in, you know, in the country, why can't we concentrate on a few states first? Those of us that have the energy, that, you know, have to concentrate our resources and take over a few places, then we advance.
Building on what Edmond has stated, and also what Baba Tokwe talked about, one thing that comes to mind is the story of two people, two contractors. I know we're quite familiar with contracts here, because politicians thrive on them. Now, two contractors. We have contractor A and contractor B. And they are given a contract to supply water to a particular village. Contractor A goes immediately and starts to supply water, employs the villagers, and starts to supply water from the stream to the village at, say, do you need that? Okay. At, say, 5 naira. And then contractor B decides to go back and then plan with his team or a team, and then comes back to that same village and passes a pipe from the stream down to the village and sells the water for 50 kobo. Sorry, is it about witchcraft now? That the villagers would rather prefer to go buy from contractor B at 50 kobo as against contractor A that is 5 naira. Is it about witchcraft now? No. Is it a spiritual matter? No. It's simple common sense, which is not common sense. And that common sense is on this single word they mentioned, strategy. The truth about it is that the Nigerian mind, I do not seem to understand. You see, when Awolowo was talking some years ago in Ghana about the philosopher king, which I and Monobilo talked extensively about on this program, you see, the philosopher king is that thinker, that strategist, right? That is ready to go the extra mile to be able to put certain structures in place in order to achieve things. The truth about it is this. Look, we need philosopher kings across the sectors of governance. Thinkers, strategists, contractor Bs, across parliamentary, across the executive, even at the judiciary, but most importantly at the executive and the parliament, and also most importantly at the parliament. But do you know what the Nigerian citizen does? The Nigerian citizen focuses on the governor, focuses on who will become the next president, not looking strategically as who becomes the next so-called honorable. Because in Nigeria, people become honorable even before they finish a tenure. I don't understand that. How can you pass an exam without even writing the exam? You see? And so we need to start focusing on the parliamentary, because if a parliament is filled with philosopher kings, what you have is that you build a movement that will make the executive accountable to the people. And that is very key. In fact, that's the master key So we need to start changing our paradigm, and it's easier to get a parliamentarian in, irrespective of the party. It's easier. And so we need to really focus around that. But most importantly, to build a movement, if there's anything I've learned, and if there's anything I've seen on the field, you know, is the fact that having been part of politics since 2007, observing and watching, till this moment when I decide to say, let's get in, right? Mostly because I feel 2013 is the year of the young people in context. Competent young people, emphasis on that.
2013 or 19?
2023, yes. However, this is it. 2019 is the year of a few competent people getting strategic power, and then providing leverage and knowledge to those who will be coming in 2023. That is my own visioning of what is going to happen. However, to build a movement, if there's anything I've learned, because evidence is the end of argument. Firstly, like you said, rightly, strategy. Secondly, philosopher kings. Philosopher kings are people who understand the principle of not just knowledge, but empathy. That is lacking. It is in Nigeria that someone has an accident and then someone is taking up his phone to take pictures and videos of an accident. We seem to have lost that empathy. And so you cannot build a movement if you cannot connect with the people that are in the movement. And it goes beyond just knowledge. It also goes to empathy. When you speak the language, right, and then you create a platform, that platform, like, you know, I don't like giving examples of Macron and the likes because those are foreign examples, though, but he used technology. However, do you know that as much as technology has not taken its place in our political space, social media has, frankly speaking. In fact, through WhatsApp, we can begin to galvanize movements for elections through WhatsApp. Movements for candidates, without even posters, without the usual way of running for elections. So I think critically, we need to understand strategy. A few people, we don't need a crowd. Muhammad started with a few. Jesus started with 12, minus 1 Judas, 11. So we don't need a crowd. And you see, those who follow the crowd can never be followed by a crowd. We need a few people who have decided to either be on that side or on this side, but working together. And that's why I created the platform votetimi.com. So that when we start identifying ourselves as so-called pragmatists, progressives, right? And then we start to provide a platform for ourselves, gradually our voice will increase. And then when our voice increases, we can make the needed change possible. It will come with hard work. It will come not in an instant. It is not a miracle. I know we are used to the miracle kind of thing, but it will not come as a miracle. It will come over a period of years. A period of, say, 8 years, a period of 12 years, a period of 20 years, and in fact a period of 100 years. But the decision, yes, the journey of 1,000,000 miles begins with a step and with a decision. I think that is basically what it involves about building a movement.
Thank you. I was calculating my age. You know, that's what he has been able to say. And then being able to, I picked on something, being able to work from what you have. People talk about what they don't have. You have WhatsApp. How can I use WhatsApp for this person? How can I use WhatsApp to even do voter education? How can I use WhatsApp to help set up kids clubs? Do you understand? So now we want questions. Well, do you want to add something as well? Yes, so then we'll take questions. Yeah, okay. 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 No, as in you say, everybody has had one turn, so you take a turn. No, you take a turn.
So I just wanted to say that I think we have a reference in history. You know, from primary school, we were taught about the Aba women's riot, the Benin women's riot. You know, when you read history, you find the Ikale women. You know, women have always been able to unite on points of common interest. And I think what has happened is that education has made us distant from our communities. Education that was supposed to open our eyes to the problems in the communities have taken us away and deadened empathy and made us want to build, you know, castles for ourselves and insulate ourselves against our communities. We are going to have to find women in their clusters. Even in modern contemporary times, women exist in clusters. They may not, exist in the women's movements as they did in the, during the time of colonial administrators. But you see, every month, women meet in cooperatives, women meet in their artisan groups, women are meeting. And there is an onus on us to take the information that we have. That is the duty of the intelligent class, to take the information that you have, to convert it into the language that the critical mass can run with. So for me, I target the young female undergraduate. I believe she's very critical. I believe that she's at a crossroad. She's defining herself. She's malleable. You can use her. You can work with her. You can, before society tells her that she's, inept or she's not qualified for the space, she's still open. She's still, willing to explore and test. Target the female undergraduate. Tell her the realities of her strength, her promise that this nation has gifted her with, and then teach her to connect with her community. I dream of a Nigeria where every female undergraduate begins to demonstrate leadership by going back to the markets, or where their mothers have shops, or where mamas are farming, or where mamas are fishing, and begin to convert the constitution for mama to understand. You see, because in those days, mama understood that when she had a challenge, she should go to the Bale's palace, or she will go to the Olubadan's palace, or she will go to the office of the native authorities, or the colonial administrators. Mama does not understand that in the democratic dispensation that you exist in, find your lawmaker's office and go and report your grievances or challenges, and tell the representative who is in the State House of Assembly, or your federal, the representative at Federal House of Assembly, tell him, oh, this is what we want at Iyaloja's in Bodija Market. This road that they are constructing is a challenge for us. We want you to go back there and institute this bill, introduce this bill at the floor of the house. So you must go back and take the knowledge that you have and train mama on how to engage in formal processes. That is the duty that we have as the intelligent class. That education that they sacrificed to give us is not for us to rush to Lagos to go and get jobs in P&G or MTN. You are supposed to develop Nigeria, because at the end of the day, where you fail and you think that you will insulate yourself and create a private sector, a Lagos economy, you will be affected by the crime rates that exist when you are either, visiting Ibadan or even on the streets of Lagos. Underpinning crime, underpinning, health challenges, underpinning poverty is the ignorance of a woman. Where you find those indices by which, even the IMFs and all the international monetary financial institutions measure development. They use health, they use, good governance, they use human rights and all those things. At the baseline is the ignorance or inadequacy of a woman that allows for those things to thrive. When you empower a woman, and a woman who is educated fights to ensure that her daughters or her sons will go to school, the travesty does not start when women are denied inclusion in politics or when women fail to include them. The travesty begins when 11 million children are out of school and 60% of those children are girls. We must be invested in ensuring that every girl has a classroom education. Every girl, it's not something that is a token, because what they are doing, they are deceiving us. They are telling us, oh, there are 26 lawmakers now in the House of Assembly, they are female. Or last dispensation there were 30. No, but the social attitudes that drive those changes have not occurred. We must ensure that at the home, we believe in gender parity. That when a boy and a girl are born, you believe that equal opportunities must lie to them. And let us not make the mistake of narrowing or generalizing the Nigerian situation to what exists in our homes. Let's have a broader picture of what is existing. We may ensure that gender parity exists within our enclaves, but go deeper. Go and find out what's happening in the Northeast, because tomorrow they will send trolley loads of beggars whose arms have been hacked or they've been turned into persons with disability because of crime, and they will send them out of that region down here to become street hawkers or beggars. Similarly, even here, when we deny ourselves those social services, we create liabilities that affect all of us. So we must ensure that when a child is born into the world, they have that, that is the promise that we must give every Nigerian citizen. That this Nigeria, the concept of nationhood must mean something. I honestly believe that right now, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that I have a green passport. But you see, what do I negotiate as a holder of that green passport internally within my territory? You should be able to be a Nigerian citizen and therefore walk into an office and say, oh, I was born on so date, and by virtue of that, you are guaranteed access to education, you are guaranteed access to basic health care. And these things are found in the youth policy document. But you see, we don't even train ourselves to advocate. We must engage in advocacy. One of the challenges I've set for myself as a manager of a non-profit is that what we are doing in CSO, civil society, we are doing programs. We are trying to be a substitute for government. If government fails to build a classroom, we'll go and build the classroom. If government fails to build a library block, we'll go and build it. No, at this point in our history, in our turning point, CSOs must advocate, because governors are existing like emperors. We must train ourselves to hold, formal engagement meetings with people who are in executive positions in this country and hold them accountable to their mandate. And let me tell you, when we as the very educated elites fail to do it, our mamas in the rural places, they are very willing, they are very energized, and they're very vibrant towards causes of this nature. The only thing missing is the information gap. Take the information to them and let's see how the movements build. Let's connect with those women at the grassroots. So every female who is here, begin to think. That's the call to action I leave you with. When you go back, if you're an undergraduate or if you're a young professional, I don't have a quarrel with WIMPs and all those things, but I believe that they are catering to a class of women who are already empowered. Money is power. When women are financially empowered, they can make decisions that affect their lives. Let's stop creating opportunities for women who are empowered to an extent. Let's go to women who cannot connect with formal society and empower them, because they gift you their agency. There is something that uneducated or lack of education or illiteracy does. It creates a meekness in the citizen. So please go back and begin to design interventions that will connect you with the grassroots. That's how the movement will start. And gradually, when we say local government elections have opened up, we will find more and more women coming to buy forms from COA and all the other political parties. Instead of waiting for all the time, men are coming for forms. We too are capable of making decisions because we are affected by those decisions. Thank you.
How do we create centers of power for change? But I came to the conclusion that Edmond Obilo, you will talk here for 20 years. Yes, people will listen. I have a mission being on radio. If you listen to me on Saturday, I said the time to create the intellectual revolution is here. And I've instigated it. If you look at me now, I talk to the diaspora, the OK Ndibes, not because they are more brilliant than the ones here. We need fresh ideas. I talk to United States professors, and there are other Nigerians we also talk to. So to know how to create centers of power, I took a journey into the Niger Delta. I spent weeks in the creeks with mosquitoes. I wanted to know how come Tombolo became very tough. That the Nigerian state listens when he speaks. That even though I feel that he's within the Nigerian state and the waters, he has been declared wanted, but I feel he's around and they see him. I needed to see how they communicate. I needed to understand why somebody that just left secondary school has become so more powerful than even professors.
Very rich. But what is the percentage of your audience in reality? We are less than 20%. I told him, translate to Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, let someone rich in those languages translate to you. Those information may change the mind of the market women. He has not done that yet. I pray he will do that. Back to you, the youths. The main problem is employment. When you are unemployed, all informations are gaberdash. Yeah, a person who has no job, who's been graduate for 5-10 years, right, and is yet unemployed, cannot think intelligently. So we are asking them, the powers that be, the policy maker, to make employment friendly. There are so many laws in Nigeria against the youth. For instance, a youth comes up and says, I want to make pap with egg yolk and a little shinap and call it Irish cream. They said no, NAFDAC number. Tell me, all those products are already NAFDAC, but they will not allow you. Somebody will make a parcel go somewhere and get NAFDAC number. When I was a young graduate like you, I was the first person to do pure water in this state. My pure water then was called Cool It. And everybody bought it. There was no NAFDAC then. Nobody was called NAFDAC. He stabilized me. I took my 504, go down the market and sell. And people bought from me. Who is giving the younger ones now the opportunity? No one. No one. That is why I'm saying the bottom line of this is that the youth should act. In the first industrial revolution in England, it was the youth who carried the day. When the artisan says, you must be an artisan to practice the trade. Of course, I don't want to go into that. That's what makes Jew lift England as at that time. But by and large, I want to tell you, the youth, try your best to get yourself something doing. Employment, I've been telling people, the time we were campaigning last, I told them that, look, any investment from any government, you should ask them, what is the employment input into this? If there's no employment input, nothing is gained. If we talk to you from now till tomorrow, and for instance, take for instance, on the day of election, you did not have your lunch a day before, you never had your dinner. Tell me, how will you vote? Even if you have a card. The most important thing is for the system to provide environment, to provide conditions for youth to get self-employed. We've preached this. We are not talking of employment of, oh yes, no. We are not talking of people giving my graduates 5,000 Nigerian naira, which is not even enough for them to drink a cup of wine. We are talking of real employment. We are talking of the state government here giving money to Isoglass, Wire Cable, and all other moribund companies that our heavy employers of labor, Exide Batteries and the rest. Whatever we, their children, who they have spent money on, tells them, they take. So please go back again and tell them that they should change and not vote money mongers. The election has come. See, we have the professor here now. To God Almighty, I have beaten the bug of him. I like him so much. And I wonder, can he really contest effectively? Except you, people, buy into his ideas that he does not need anything from the society presently. He has said it is highly comfortable. Please, I'm begging you all not to just join the bandwagon of, I don't want to waste my vote. Someone said, every voter that refused to vote on an election date has voted for the wrong candidate. If you do not vote, it means you've allowed the wrong person to win. So please, like it was said earlier, I'm still pleading with you, take voter's card, and please join a party. Join a party. In my days, when you leave secondary school, for instance, you go and seek employment, right? And by the time you're seeking employment, if you pass your school cert then, you are clerical officer. If you fail your school cert, you are what? Clerical assistant. If you don't do WAEC at all, you are an illiterate, no employment. So if you don't join any party, either you have won or you have not won, you are not a participant. So I plead with you all, please join a party, take your card, take your voter's card. How do you want a change? How do you, in our own case, believe you me, I studied abroad. By the time we came back, we were paid our return tickets. Yeah, the federal government paid us our return ticket. Not only that, they say it's a foreign company. We are given a time for 6 weeks. Yes, in this same country. And we are made to choose the state we want to go. So now tell me, if you refuse to vote, you understand me, you cannot tell or dictate who you want to rule you. Right? And if you leave everything to the other persons, the fools will continue to run you. You, the youth, sometime in the last campaign, I was in political science department, you are there. We spoke and all the hall was shouting, Kowa, Kowa, Kowa. And I thought it would translate to vote. Yes. Now let me tell you, if it does not, or what you see, our talking now. Yeah, it did not. So, also, I want to join Prof. Others to thank Prof for bringing a kind of a symposium like this. it has served a lot, and I believe and I want it to be done to the locals. To the look, all these guys here, they've had things like this time and time again. I've not seen anything we spoken here that is not spoken on Edmond the Village program. So, but the local ones, no, they are deaf. It's we who could now talk to them and make them hear our readings. I wish you all a good luck. After your education, I pray you get employed the way I was. I wish you all the best.
I was built to be the best, number one and nothing less. Lead me to my destiny. I have waited patiently. I have vision, oh I believe. I know I can count.
I'm Timi Olagunju. I'm a lawyer, I'm a design thinking consultant, and I'm running for the Federal House of Reps, Ibadan North. You see, a program like that of Kingsley Moghalu initiative, youth initiative, held today at the American Corner in Ibadan, has brought in the consciousness of young people towards ensuring that they get involved as an active citizen in the political process, but not just as active citizens, but also as political gladiators. Because the truth is this, culture, not politics, determines the success of a nation, but politics can change a culture and deliver it from itself. So programs like this is out to change the culture of passive citizenship among young people and get young people involved both as active citizens and as politically active individuals in their respective wards and local government. And I think that is quite laudable. And consequently, this kind of program, as it has been in Kano and now Ibadan, there's a tendency to move it across different parts of the country, and so that more young people are battered into the culture of being active citizens and political gladiators and share that message to other people in the grassroots across communities, because conversation enriches the understanding, and that is why this kind of program has come to stay. For me as a person running for office, particularly for the Federal House of Reps, Ibadan North, I, Timi Olagunju, one of my key focus is around ensuring that young people do not just have a voice, but have a seat at the table in terms of making policies that transform the lives of people, policies that promote economic prosperity and increase the standard of living. And so, how do I galvanize young people? I'm galvanizing young people using social media, technology, as well as grassroots mobilization in order to drive Nigeria from where it is to a Nigeria that works for all of us, to a Nigeria for all of us, irrespective of your background, your tribe, or your religion. And that's why I, Timi Olagunju, am standing for office. Thank you.
So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions.
I'm Kazim Bolaniwa, a business consultant, awarded Young Person of the Year, or Justice Young Person of the Year per se. What I've learned today is more than what I would see as an eye-opener per se. However, Kingsley Moghalu Youth Foundation is such that has immensely added value to the youth, of course, of not just your state alone, but Nigeria as an entirety. So what I'm going to say is just that this kind of foundation should continue, and it should try to the best of its ability to make sure that it puts its utmost power, capability to make sure that it is sustained over time. When we see initiative these days, it's always channeled towards probably an intention of the owner. What I mean by that is probably someone that wants to contest for an office will just set up an initiative so that they will say that, oh, he has this foundation, and people will begin to applaud him. But so far, he hasn't declared anything of such. So I think this is such an initiative that is forward-looking into the betterment of the youth of Nigeria as an entirety. And that is why we all are here today, to make sure that we learn, okay, we listen, of course, to him as an established person. Are you getting it? And we equally come here today to add value to our existing body of knowledge by meeting with someone of his nature. Of course, we could see technocrats here, we could see established moguls, we could see politicians, we could see young people of different backgrounds, mentality and philosophies coming together to eventually network. Okay, this is the kind of movements that we want, and that we even need. And again, will be made known that we should all join political parties. Of course, joining political parties would enable us to get fielded for political positions eventually. And for example, I'll be contesting 2019 by God's grace for State House of Assembly, and I'm here today to equally meet young people, young vibrant people like me, and that is what I've successfully achieved today. You see, so what I'm going to say is that this kind of initiative is such that people that are already well established in Nigeria should try to come up with, because it goes a long way in adding value to the states in which they have it and Nigeria at large. Youth that have the potential to vie for positions or that don't have the courage, I think they should see people like us, okay, that we are trying to the best of our ability to be heard. We are trying to the best of our ability to put everything that we do aside to make sure that we contribute our quota to the development of our nation, okay, because of course leaders emerge during the period of crisis, which is exactly what we are trying to do now. So they should see that we equally are youth, and it's not as if we have a godfather that is dictating for us behind the scene. So they should equally try to come forward and try to emulate us or be like us or even work with us, so that we're going to form a formidable force. Are you getting it now? So that we are going to take Nigeria to that dream in which we all have.
Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions.
Good afternoon, my name is Adeshawa. This is indeed a very wonderful program. We all had fun, we learned a lot. I learned a lot, like knowing that leadership is beyond what we see, but we have to think about the future, like other Western societies and other societies like China and all that have been doing. You know, I learned a lot from this program. It's been so impacting. We learned about participation, we learned about how to have good leadership, we learned about knowing that it's not about age and many other things. So there's so many things that this program is all encompassing. And you know, I was thrilled by the population that we had today, and then I'm hoping that this program will continue. You know, we'll have this maybe annually, quarterly, every 6 months, or as often as possible, so that youths and, you know, can learn and grow up, you know, and grow, so that by 2023 we have a lot of emerging youths. We have youths that have built capacity for what we have in store, for what we are hoping to achieve in Nigeria. Thank you.
Here we go, it's getting close. Now it's just who wants it most. It's just life, that's how it is. Cause we have our...
My name is Vatape Falade Onikoyi. I'm the CEO of Onikoyi Meeting Consulting. I must say that this event was a success. The organizers put in a lot, and you could see that the panelists and speakers, you know, came prepared because of the quality of interactions we saw. I look forward to be a part of this sort of event, you know, subsequently, and hopefully I hope that there will be integration of some other ideas, you know, aside youth participation in governance. This section was about, you know, youth participation, you know, in politics. You know, I'm hoping that the next session would account for, you know, the ethics of youth, because I believe that more important than political participation is economic empowerment. You know, if the youth are employed or they have things they are doing, you know, that is bringing funds for them, they find it very easy to participate in politics. They find it very easy to contribute to political campaigns, you know. So I think that's what we need to integrate going forward. But all in all, the event was a success, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Can't you see I'm on the move? Make way for me. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself back up. And when I fall down, I have to pick myself up. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up.